Hi and welcome to a small business podcast for small business. It's a Liam only episode today in respect to I'm going to be interviewing two people because Farley was unfortunately running a little bit late after an appointment that she had. But don't worry, it's not going to be just me on my own. Today I'm going to be joined by two people, Ben from Homes and Hills and David, who's a returning guest from the Stephen Burton & Co. accountancy agency. Homes and Hills, of course, are solicitors, and they help people out with all those legal matters. And you might be thinking, what value am I going to get from this episode? Well, let me tell you, both of these gentlemen have got some fantastic insights and some really, really important skills that I believe we can learn from when we're building our own small businesses. Because at the end of the day, we need to be able to build rapport with people, build those relationships with people in order to work out how we can help them best. And that's exactly what David and Ben give us some great examples and tips on how to do in this particular episode. So don't worry, Farley's going to be back with a part 2 because this particular episode was a bit of a long one and she was able to make it back for part of the interview itself. So you'll have a part 2 next week. But otherwise, sit back, enjoy and take some notes because I think we all can learn from some things that were shared within this particular episode. Okay, I'll dive into the show. Hi and welcome to the Small Business Podcast for Small Businesses, which is the rebrand of what the show is now called. Farley's on her way, but we wanted to kick things off and introduce both David and Ben for this particular episode, where we're going to talk about your worlds and what you do for your worlds of work. So would you mind giving a short introduction about what it is that you do, and then we'll get started from there?
Sure. My name's David Verne. I am director at Stephen Burton & Co. So we are accountants based in sunny Earls Cove and been there for about 10 years. And we tend to help businesses, all manner of businesses, to be honest. So small one-man bands right up to bigger companies that have got lots of people working for them. We tend to see ourselves as accountants because I know we've got accountants absolutely have a reputation. Tend to see ourselves as accountants that like to talk to people, and we like helping our clients do well. So we kind of want to do that more, and that's what we tend to do with the clients. We work side by side with other professions too, which is why we've worked with Ben, Homes and Hills quite a bit, because we tend to kind of see issues that businesses have. And sometimes we know that we can't fix that ourselves, so we need other people to help us, such as Ben.
Well, I couldn't do it without you, David. And we were just saying before this podcast, before the recording started, that I have all these questions in my standard form inquiries for the client, but when it gets down to all the text questions, I don't know. End of stage left, David. So I'm Benjamin or Ben Jerome. I'm an associate solicitor at Homes and Hills Solicitors, and while I personally work in the land and development department dealing with housing supply and building houses and infrastructure for local communities, we do have a full service offering where we will offer commercial property services for buying and selling, commercial property, leasing, and all sorts of things like that. But we also deal with family matters, litigation, private clients, so wills and probate, clinical negligence, and lots of other things. Lots and lots of other things. I think we're one of only 2 or 3 offices, law firms in the entire region that has a planning department, and we deal with some amazing work there that is of national significance. So that's quite special.
Amazing. So no 2 days are the same.
Absolutely not. And I wouldn't have it any other way.
I think that keeps it interesting for you guys, like when you're doing your jobs, isn't it? And you're always kind of looking at something slightly different from different perspectives and different angles. I love the fact that you both spoke very well about each other there. But would you say that kind of having that collaborative communication, but also building relationships kind of important? Like, because obviously you worked with each other in the past for both your levels of expertise, but I suppose having that ability to trust that you already know this person is going to work well with you.
Like for us, it's all that, because everyone that we kind of recommend or say, yeah, this person can help, it's sort of on us, even though we're not doing the work. It's on us, because if that recommendation kind of isn't great, the client we've got kind of look at us and go, do you really know what you're talking about? Which I kind of get completely. So it definitely, for us, we kind of tread really carefully to make sure that we're recommending the right people to fit the right client. And like there was a couple of jobs Ben did that I historically, definitely with solicitors and lawyers, it's been tricky to introduce them to the client, because if you're a client, that can feel intimidating, because, you know, you kind of, it's not your world, and I get that completely. But with Ben, like he spoke to client with God, put him at ease really quickly, made a few jokes, which kind of doesn't happen very often with solicitors. And it works really well because the client was on board straight away. And then all the complicated stuff, you know, that this pack of stuff that Ben has to do became so much easier because the client was on board with it, and we could work together to get through it, and as a team all together rather than against the client. It works really well.
Yeah, fantastic. I think like the interesting part for me there is breaking down those barriers, because like you say, there is a lot of technical work that goes into there, and a lot of your expertise that, you know, hands up is going to go well over my head, and I'm sure a lot of your clients, that's why they're coming to you for that level of expertise. But I suppose, talk to me, Ben, about like your approach with like trying to build that relationship with somebody, because I've worked in the training and learning development industry for quite a while, and I've been on some of the meetings where I've cracked a joke, but it's not necessarily kind of gone down how I thought it would go down. So like, do you kind of gauge that person and try and kind of put some human elements in there as and when you can?
It depends what it is. I mean, just when you're talking just now about recommendations and things like that, if someone's come to me from Dave, for example, I will know that, oh, they're going to be a wonderful client. You know, I can talk to them like we're talking now, human beings. But if they are a more corporate client, if there's someone, you get increasingly from the local community where local family businesses have become much more big scale. They probably become national and sometimes even international. And because they're so big, they can't just, you can't just phone up the MD and say, oh, let's have a chat. You have to go through a process, and that's a bit more formal. It really just depends what it is. You were talking before just about recommendations, and if you've got someone out there that you can put in touch with your client for that particular need. Yeah, I mean, from my point of view as a solicitor, the best form of marketing is word of mouth. I can sit in the office, my colleagues can sit in the office, and I know we do a fantastic job, if I say so myself, and that's wonderful, but we don't get, people outside the office don't see that. And the best way to get that out there, in my experience, is not to do a big advert on the website, or maybe even an advert in the paper, because I think people get a bit, I don't know, they don't want to see adverts in the paper, they want to read the news or whatever it is they bought the paper for. It's word of mouth. And so when people like David say, oh yeah, Ben, he's a human being, he can get it done for you, that's the best thing. And people really, and then that particular client that's been recommended to me, no doubt will talk to their friends and their colleagues and their communities and say, oh yeah, there's that Rottweiler at Holmes and Hills, he can do it for you, he'll do a really good job. Hopefully they don't say Rottweiler, won't you?
I think it works. Like, it definitely works. The recommendation thing, it works well when I think the client's kind of aligned with how they want to be spoken to. And we were just talking before this about how people feel, the emotion attached to, a document like that. This is just a load of words and numbers. Like, I quite like the number side of it. It defend the words. And I think the irony is that some people, definitely lawyers and accountants, get kind of so involved in this and they love the detail on it. The irony on all of this is they miss the point that the business owner, this is their life. This is a huge thing for them. And I think that knowing that and understanding that means you can then translate what all of this means, which is incredibly complicated, into how it's going to affect them, how it's going to make them feel. Are we going to make them feel safe? That's effectively what it is, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I just wanted to say there that I think in my line of work as the solicitor, it's not so much about what you know. I mean, it is what you know, but a lot of it is about trying to convince the client to trust you. And in order to get the client to trust you, they have to feel that you have empathy for their position. And sometimes clients have unusual situations because reality is stranger than fiction most of the time, and all sorts of funny and weird and unusual things happen. They need to understand that you are sympathetic to that. And, you know, in my 12 years, is it 12? It might be a bit longer than that now.
You don't seem old enough.
Very kind. Both know it's true. In my 12 odd years of experience, I've seen a lot of different things. And if I may be so bold as to say, not a lot surprises me now. And if someone came to me and said, Ben, I've got this absolutely mad situation, and I can see the look in their eyes, I need you to help me. Usually not a problem. It's usually quite a big thing to unpick or deal with something that's unusual or sophisticated. And I think they might say on some of the bank adverts, it's about the journey in that situation. But if you, at the beginning of that journey, have said, whether verbally or just through your body language of the client, we're going to get through this, we can deal with this, I've done this before, I know what I'm doing, I think that's half the battle, really, when they're happy with you.
I think from what you both said there, I think it's kind of that whole package, isn't it? It's being able to empathise and kind of understand where that person's coming from, but also putting them at ease and like you said, David, about kind of that introduction, and Ben, you agreed. If somebody's giving you a bit of a warm introduction about, you know, this is a good guy and they'll get you to where you need to be, you've already taken some steps without even having to be in your room because you've had that introduction from that trusted source. And I like what you were saying there, Ben, about when we see an advert, we know as soon as you're like looking at the page and turn over and there's that big spread or even just that section and it's Homes and Hills or whatever advert happens to be, we know it's there for a reason and somebody's paid money to be put in front of us, and we skim over it unless it's absolutely relevant to us in that moment. It's a little nudge, a little reminder to say we're here,
I'm still here. Yeah.
But when somebody actually needs you, that's kind of where that relationship building kind of starts, and that journey. And personally, like I create podcasts and help people with, I like the idea of conversational content, because with the like reels and the TikToks that just flash in front of your eyes, how many of those do you actually remember? I think there was a statistic to say that somebody, on average, people scroll the length of the Eiffel Tower in a day, which is absolutely balmy to me.
It's a way to look at it, isn't it?
Like if you were to stack each post.
Remember that, can you? I know I definitely guilty of that, kind of scrolling through stuff, and I'm like, I don't even know what I did a couple of seconds ago.
Tell me the last 10 posts you just look
Could
at.
be anything.
But for me, like, and my kind of belief in everybody is if we have conversations, then we're able to break down some of those barriers to kind of introduce our personality and expertise to people to give them that reassurance that
communication is always key. And, you know, I think a lot of the time when a new client comes in with something, whether it's very straightforward or not, whether their expectation is that it will be straightforward or not, they often come in and they're a bit worried. They're a bit, almost a bit scared. I think because they come into the office, oh, this is a place never been before. These are lawyers, oh, you know, they've got a reputation. But as soon as you've actually sat down with them and they've seen, oh, look, he's a human being. He sounds like me.
Yeah,
he looks like me. And then you go through at a reasonable pace. You know, this is what you've got. This is where you want to get to. Is that where you expect to end up? This is what we need to do to get from A to B, all the bits in the middle, all the fun bits. They sort of, I think because you've given them a handle, they think, oh yeah, that's okay. And they're much more relaxed. You've got their trust to some extent, and actually they're happy just at that point to let you get on with it. And that speeds things up, because the less client interaction you've got during the transaction, the less updates you're giving, the more time you've got to do the job. So it works in that way as well from an efficiency point of view.
I totally agree with that. Like, I think it's one of the first things we do. We start talking to a client. We kind of ask them where they want to get to, be that 2 years, 5 years, whatever it is, because we kind of figure if we know where it is they're heading, the how bit is our job. How do we get there?
Yeah.
That's the complex bit. That's the bit that we do.
Yeah.
If we're all on the same page about where we're getting to, they can crack on and do the work that they're great at. Believe in us, exactly what you said, and leaving us to do the job that we do.
Yeah.
That works so well with the clients we have that are really successful, because they're the ones that stick to what they're good at, and they kind of go, I sort of know what you're talking about. I don't really want to know all of it. And like, I used to, when I first started this job, I used to think, everyone wants to know all the detail of what I've done to get to the end of this problem. And the irony is, like, I know no one cares. No one cares whether it's taking me ages to get to this number. I don't take it personally at all, because, like, I get it. It's not the most fun thing in the world. So it kind of now is sort of, it's not really about the detail. It's about the end. What that number does for that family or that business. That's what it is. We are always focused on that.
I suppose it's a balance, isn't it? Because you've almost got to translate the hard work that needs to go in to get into that end result, but also gauging what that client wants as well. Because speaking to like the fear kind of element, or the apprehension that somebody might have when they come in and meet somebody, or they come into an unfamiliar kind of setting, they've got those pre-formed assumptions of what the process is going to be like. But do you almost have to break down the barriers to make sure you understand exactly what that person is talking about and what their objectives are? Because I know sometimes, like, you go into an intimidating situation, you could quite easily just get swept along with say yes to things that perhaps you mean no to.
So I think for me, like, I'm terrible at most things kind of DIY or hands-on, shocking at it. And I feel the same kind of fear when I'm talking to, say, someone in construction or build, or someone that's going to do some work for me or fix a problem. I kind of feel the same thing that if it was the other way around, that builder, that person would be talking about their company's tax bill or kind of a legal problem. I feel the same thing when I'm talking to them about them fixing a problem for me. So I totally get it, because it's not something that I'm very good at. So I don't know enough. So it's almost you coming into it not really on a level playing field. So I totally get it. And I kind of try and with I keep saying trying. Like, we always try and get better at what we do. But what we want to do is kind of give clients we've got the kind of safety to go, we're on your side. We get it. We're not expecting you to know everything. That seems to work better. And ironically, the more AI that's coming into our world, probably both of ours, the thing that's standing out more and more is humans.
I knew you were going to say that. Yeah.
It's like, you must see it, Laurie. We've seen it already, and I think it's just the start of what's coming. And it's a good thing, because it should get rid of some really mundane stuff that probably both of us are a big fan of anyway. And it should lead us more time to go, right, we're going to have a conversation about this, because this is how it's going to impact you, and it's going to how it's impact the family, the business, and we can do more. So it's a good thing, and it allows us to do the stuff we actually like doing more than before. So
I suppose there's a danger, isn't there, with AI? Like, I've talked to a few people about it, and I've seen some examples of where somebody's used AI and they're super proud of it. and they've presented some ideas and some concepts, and it's like, well, that's not necessarily exactly the outcome that perhaps you were looking for. And I think there was a professor that I followed on LinkedIn where it typed in a question and AI gave a very convincing answer, but it was in their background and they knew that that was incorrect. So they ended up having this back and forth with AI, and AI effectively said, yeah, it caught me out. I didn't like, yeah, I wanted to give you an answer. And I think that's the thing, is like AI is almost kind of like a potential of being an echo chamber of it's trying to please you. Whereas sometimes you need to give a more honest or a reality kind of balance. And I think so. Yeah, it will be interesting to see where AI kind of goes and hopefully takes away some of that kind of repetitive kind of element to it.
You know, AI has its place. You were talking just now about communication with clients. You can be talking the same language. This is my experience. You can be talking the same language, but not actually talking the same language. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can both be speaking English, but what they're saying doesn't mean what you're hearing, and vice versa. And I don't know, actually, do you find that? It's really quite common.
Yeah.
And I find that the way to deal with that is to get the client into a very quiet place where they can be quite calm and considered, a meeting room, I suppose. And I just let them talk, and I say, look, you tell me whatever you need to tell me about this that's relevant. And a lot of it is not relevant, I have to tell you. A lot of it is not. But I'm glad they did tell me that, because in between all the stuff I don't need to know, there are shards of things that actually are really damn important. And if we hadn't had this conversation, I might not have known that.
See, I think that's the difference. The AI thing, that's the difference. The nuance, like the new kind of bits that are human, but the human fear, the human everything related to everything we do, every transaction, every kind of thing that we have to deal with. There's always some human element to it. And I don't know how AI would understand that because it's not human. So I think that's the bit that sometimes gets missed because it's all about speed, more about pace. So I think more and more as we go through this change, because I think it's affecting everyone. It's not just our industries; it will be every industry. And I was on a course recently where they were kind of saying the pace of change is it's learning and kind of increasing the amount it can learn every 7 months. And that pace of change, if it carries on, is phenomenal. So where does that leave us? Well, I feel like we'll still be around.
If it can go to work for me and I get paid and it goes to work and I've got a free life, great.
Amazing.
I'm sure it will work like that. That was something.
No, fantastic. I think, I think like the nuance is really important. And like you say, it's those coincidental pieces that you can draw from that conversation that perhaps if you didn't give the space and the environment for somebody to feel comfortable enough to share that, like can be night and day. You mentioned, Ben, that when you have an interaction with somebody for the first time, you let them tell you what they think you need to know. Is there? Do you just let them talk at length, or do you kind of interrupt? So I'm just interested on that how that works.
I've never had a client who talks forever and ever and ever and ever. But if that did happen, it'd be interesting to see how that works out. But generally what happens is the client, they don't have a huge amount to say, but what they do have to say, you can tell from the tone and from how they're a bit tight, a bit uptight, a bit tense. You can tell that whatever it is so important to them, and you've got to be very delicate to that, very sensitive to that. And that's how you build the trust. If, for example, I had a client come to me and they said they've got multi-million-pound commercial premises and they want to sell it, but in the course of telling me they want to sell it, they're telling me about their kids, their dog, their cat, their Aunt June and the kitchen sink. And then in the middle of all that, they say, oh, there's contamination on the land. And then they carry on talking about those other things that aren't exactly relevant to the transaction. Once they've finished, I will go back to that point and say, oh, tell me more about the contamination. What is that? It's quite an unusual thing for a client to point out, but sometimes they do. And the client might say, oh yeah, there's some nuclear contamination on the land, nuclear waste. Silence. Okay. And does the buyer know that? Oh yeah, they're fine with it. Are you sure? Oh yeah, they're an international energy provider, and they're building premises around it that actually need that to be there. Really? Okay. It actually worked out fine, but you see, it was quite important for most people for obvious reasons. But I might not have known that otherwise until I got an inquiry from the buyer with one of those searches saying, "Oh, it's saying there's a problem with the land. There's nuclear waste on it. Is there?" My clients have told me.
Do you know, it's weird because in our world, it's sort of, we talk about tax, we talk about someone's tax returns, do some really complicated tax planning stuff with it. And the thing that keeps coming up more and more at the moment is, I've got a student loan. And then what that means is we kind of need to factor that in, because effectively student loan means you're paying another 10% tax on your income. So if we do this really complicated tax planning, then going to end up with a tax bill that could be massive to repay student loan. And it's through a lot of it, like we send checklists out and all sorts. We know people don't tend to read many checklists. I definitely don't. But it's those conversations around kind of, well, how did you get into this? What are you doing? Well, you've been to university. So, okay, have you got student loans still? And I can see that becoming more and more of a problem, because I think there's been a fair bit in media about student loans and the cost.
Yeah.
And I can see the next generation of business owners having that problem, but even bigger, because their student loans are going to be with them probably for their entirety of their career. So we kind of need to factor that into how we plan their tax bills.
Yeah. I suppose, again, it's like paying attention to what's being said. Like what you say, if somebody said, oh, they've been to university, little side note, and checking on the funding side of things. But then also kind of like, if you've been through that scenario before where you got so far down the line of a client and then suddenly you find out about a student loan, and then having to break the news that we've got some additional factors that we need to kind of process here, it kind of makes you consider that as part, and that's why you're an expert. Like, that's why you've been doing it so many years. That's why people come to you, right? Because they know that you're going to be in a better position than simply typing into ChatGPT or choose your AI. And you've got that level of experience that's perhaps missing otherwise.
I think the world's changed definitely over the last 4 or 5 years. The world has changed for every business owner and everyone that's self-employed. I think it's going to change. It's definitely changing again over the next year or two, and then again after that. There's so much that's going to change, and it will impact people, and they won't know until it's too late, when they start getting penalties and start getting kind of late filings and all that kind of stuff. It's really hard to be a business owner, I think, at this point,
Right.
because it kind of feels like a lot of the legislation is sort of pointed towards not really wanting many business owners and kind of want to meet more people to be employed, because that would be easier.
Yeah.
So to be a business owner, I think you've got to be a certain type of person, because there's a lot against you.
Yeah.
And we're both trying to get to the point where we're on the side of the business owner to make sure that they're protected and to make sure they know what they're getting into, and make sure they're not paying they're paying the right amount of tax and stuff.
Yeah. I know Farley kind of deals with a lot of people who are about to transition into making tax digital.
Yeah, it's going to be fun, isn't it?
And like something that I observed when she kind of has a lot of people at this time of year who need to do their tax returns, and it's like lastminute.com. Is like, do you find that people come into you a bit more prepared than perhaps they should be, or is it like oh my god, I need a solution?
I think
now
clients that come to us, they tend to move accountant for two reasons: either the accountant has passed away,
okay, yeah,
or selling, or the accountant's done something really, really wrong, and there's a problem that needs fixing. So that's what tends to happen, because you don't want to be switching accountant every 5 minutes, because there's a bit of admin to do, and it's something that doesn't make the business better. not straight away anyway. So it tends to be those two reasons. They tend to, and I think most circumstances, it's not the client that's done something wrong. It's they haven't been helped and educated in a way that helps them. Exactly what Ben was saying. Never been spoken to in the right language to go, this is what we need you to do. This is how we need you to prepare for the next jump of your business, or this is coming up.
Yeah, I suppose it's kind of thinking further down the road in the next 5 minutes, isn't it? And like kind of sometimes, Ben, I don't know if it's the same in your kind of world, but I think that quite a lot of the time everyone thinks about now. And I think that we've all been trained to have everything on demand. My son is a great example. He just wants to watch. He started picking up The Simpsons and he's binge watching The Simpsons. And I keep telling him, like, I used to have to wait a whole week or like sit for ad breaks, at least a day, or like sit through the ad breaks and stuff. And like you haven't got that pain point and things that didn't used to come like next day delivery and things like that. And I think that we are like, it's fantastic, but we are getting a little bit kind of used to them rather than thinking bigger picture long term. I think that's where, it is challenging for small businesses now, from what I'm hearing and experiencing, having like running a small business myself. I think there are some kind of elements that are more challenging than hopefully what they will be long term, and that kind of keeps me going. But I think, resilience is kind of the word that I'd use on that.
You can say to a client, I, as a legal professional, recommend that you do X, Y, and Z, but it's totally up to the client what they do. And it's definitely not my place to say you're wrong. You're wrong, because that's not how it works.
Yeah.
And, if I've told the client, I think this, and I think this because, and they've gone away, had my letter of advice, or my email usually, because I don't really write because I think it's too long. Email's quicker. If they've gone away and considered that, and they've said, I've considered it, and I've decided that we're either going to follow it, or we're not going to follow it, or we're going to do a bit of this and a bit of that, not this and not that. They've made an informed decision.
Right.
And that's what it's all about. You can go blue in the face saying to your client, oh, this is the right thing to do, that's the wrong thing to do. But at the end of the day, I don't run their business. They do. They know what's in their interest, what's in their company's best interests, and they will act accordingly. That's the client-solicitor relationship. I say to them what the law is, and they then relate that to what they do. And it works like that. There's no straightforward answer. It's just, it's life. Some things people accept, some things people don't accept. And of course, way into the situation, when you've got a negotiation with a third party who is totally commercial, doesn't care about your position, sometimes you do have to negotiate and compromise and do things that you don't really want to do. But overall, it gives you the leverage to get the deal done. And that's the ultimate goal. That's the prize, and eyes are on the prize. Just depends on what it is.
Thank you so much for listening and watching. If you're watching any of these clips or the longer form YouTube episode. Interesting enough, if you are listening, did you know we've got a YouTube channel that you can listen to these episodes on as well? Please do follow us on the social media channels that are all linked in the show notes. And for me, I feel just the biggest takeaway was just about having those conversations with people and thinking about how can we have those reassuring situations where we're being human with somebody and not necessarily just giving somebody a checklist or, a form to fill in before we start to work with them. Having those initial conversations are so powerful. So I'd just like to remind you, think about how you can start to bring some of the advice and the tips that Ben and David shared within this episode. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe and like, because it will help a small podcast like ours, and share this with anyone who you think it would be valuable to. Remember that Farley is doing a part 2 for this, where she goes into a little bit more about the businesses areas that both David and Ben work in. But until next week, take care, and we can't wait to speak soon. Catch you.